President Korvalak, Vice President Hummer, board members, Dr. Alato. My name is Les Douglas. I'm the Supervisor of Transportation. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Before I go into my presentation, I'd like to give a personal thank you to the kids who provided such effective stress-relieving exercises. In the fall of 2015, Anne Arundel County Public Schools purchased the VMAX Compass school bus routing program. Over the past 20 months, staff from the Transportation Office and the Division of Information Technology, with the assistance of the Office of Student Data and the Special Education Department, have been working diligently to design, build, and implement a school bus routing system utilizing the Compass program. Other components of the system include the Esri ArcMap program, considered state-of-the-art in GIS platforms, and an Anne Arundel County base map provided by the County Geographic Information System, or GIS office. The purpose of today's presentation is to update the board on the progress of this implementation. To fully appreciate the magnitude and complexity of the new system, it will be valuable to review some basic facts about the current state of school bus routing in the county. From there, we'll examine the design and structure of the new system and finally review the timeline for successful implementation. As part of this review, we will examine several ever-present components of implementation failures from around the country. We'll identify both the risk associated with rushing the process and the accompaniment high cost of failure. The Transportation Office currently uses two separate routing databases to manage the three vastly different components of the transportation routing system. The first component is made up of general neighborhood and on and along stops designed to serve the general population of students attending their home schools. The second component is made up of collector stops designed to serve students attending magnet or county-wide programs. These stops are managed by the STARTS database program, and STARTS stands for Student Transportation and Route System. And it keeps track of neighborhood and on-route stops served by the contracted buses. These database records are organized by stops and trips, not by students. Most of this routing information is not protected by the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, and may be shared with the general public. The third component is made up of special stops designed to serve the individual needs of approximately 3,000 of our students. This group is made up of some special education students, students attending non-public schools, displaced and foster care students as defined by the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act, and students whose transportation is governed by Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. This routing component is subject to constant change. These stops are managed by the STOPS database program designed to keep track of all of the individualized or customized stops on contracted and AACPS-owned buses. These database records are organized by student. All of this information is protected by FERPA and may not be shared with the general public. The transportation specialists at Millersville, using their experience and knowledge of the county, have combined these three routing components into an integrated routing system that has produced a safe and effective routing process. The transportation cost per student has been recognized as the single most reliable key performance indicator used to measure the efficiency of a school system's bus routing program. AACPS has consistently had the lowest transportation cost per student of the large suburban, urban Maryland counties, as documented in the Maryland State Department of Education Fact Book. When compared to data from the Council of Great City Schools, a national consortium of school systems, AACPS also ranks among the most efficient systems. In preparation for the 2015-2016 school year, the transportation staff processed 3,088 route changes during the summer months. During the 2015-2016 school year, they also processed 2,555 substantive bus route changes, averaging approximately 14 a day throughout the year. The number of changes during the first 2 weeks of school averaged approximately 50 a day. These numbers represent the typical volume from year to year. For various reasons during the school year, the specialized individual bus stops for 880 students were no longer needed and were removed from the service. During the same period, there were 89 mass changes of bus numbers to accommodate ridership changes. All of these changes then needed to be communicated to contractors, drivers, schools, students, and parents in a timely manner. Routing is a job of continuous change, adjustment, and communication involving the entire transportation office. One component of the current routing method that contributes to the comparatively low cost per student in Anne Arundel County is the dovetailing of special needs and regular work on the same buses and trips. Most school systems segregate this work to a greater degree on two different fleets. An added benefit to our routing method is that it better meets the requirements for least restrictive environment for special education students. This method does, on the other hand, add an extra degree of complexity to the structure of the bus routes and the communication of the route information to the general school community. An effective and safe routing system must also contain a reserve capacity. This reserve capacity is defined as either unused blocks of time during the route or unused seats on a bus. Reserve capacity is necessary for the ability to make the thousands of changes the Transportation Office is required to make throughout the year. Note the children's puzzle. Without the empty space, no change or solution to the puzzle is possible. This reserve capacity may appear to be inefficiency on the surface. In reality, it's an integral component of a flexible, responsive, and safe transportation system, just like the empty space is an integral part of the children's puzzle. The reserve capacity must be maintained strategically throughout the county in order to facilitate the constant changes without unduly disrupting the transportation services of the other approximately 58,000 students that the system serves. Now let's examine the architecture of the new system. The routing software creates and maintains trips and routes and maintains specific routing information drawn from the county base map and the student and special education databases. The software also generates routing reports for contractors, drivers, schools, and parents. The Compass software creates these trips and routes using the county centerline map and the proprietary routing code contained in the Esri ArcMap software that the Compass program sits on. Much of the early work and a successful implementation is in ensuring that the map data is not only correct, but is sufficient to allow the routing program to make intelligent decisions. Although the county provides an excellent map, there is a significant amount of data that needs to be added by the Transportation Office to meet the routing program's specific needs. Let's review some mapping basics. Each intersection is a node. Nodes are connected by road segments. Road segments combine to make the centerline map. And in Anne Arundel County, there are approximately 33,000 road segments. Approximately 19,000 of these segments will be used by school buses to serve school routes. Approximately 25,000 of these road segments will be used by students to get to and from their schools or bus stops. Each road segment contains 57 individual bits of data assigned in the GIS map. The Transportation Office must add additional information for the routing software to work effectively. Can a student walk to the bus stop? Can a student safely cross a road? Which way is the bus allowed to safely turn at an intersection? This information must be added to each road segment. In addition, 120 school driveways must be added to the base map. Note that the South River campus driveway network has 18 road segments. Each field of these additional segments must be populated if the routing software is to intelligently use these segments to route buses. The next step in designing and building the system was to accurately place the existing bus stops on the base map. Approximately 20,000 bus stops needed to be placed accurately on the map from the START's bus stop database. This is not as simple a step as it appears on the surface. The automated process will usually place the stop in the center of the intersection. If left in this location, implementation will assuredly fail. This location gives the routing program too many options for approaching and departing from the stop. The program will always choose the shortest option, understating the time and distance it takes for a bus to complete routes and trips, a common characteristic of failed implementations. Now, what we need to do for each one of these 20,000 stops is to place that stop in where the program can intelligently route that bus. And instead of in the middle, we have 8 options for where we can put that. There are actually 8 corners at that intersection. This particular stop only services the students on the bottom community of the map, so that would eliminate the top 4 alternatives. Of the bottom 4 alternatives, and again, we're trying to duplicate what we have now, that's where we're going to start, we have to place the bus stop on the lower left-hand side. And in placing it there, we've just built enough intelligence into the map so that the routing program knows that this bus must approach this stop from the left side of the map. That would put the door of the bus where the kids are. And if you recall 2 months ago in the presentation that Mr. Shegnovich gave, that most of the fatalities that occur in school bus-related accidents occur to students as pedestrians, not as occupants of the bus. And of those, 18 a year, and 12 of them were fatalities of pedestrians. The majority of those happened at bus stops. So the activity of placing bus stops must be a human activity, and it is throughout the industry. And again, this audit and adjustment must be done to each of our approximately 20,000 stops. Let me review some of the results if these steps are not taken. The results of bypassing these steps are painful and costly. This is a headline in the Boston Globe from September 21st, 2010. Bus stop delays anger parents. We have some verbiage up there, but if you read the entire article, it's obvious that they rushed this portion of the implementation. And these effects are never ending. Note the Boston Globe headline from a year later. A year later, school bus is still late. The next step in constructing the system, in addition to the street and stop data placed on the bus map, student data generated at each school must be entered onto the base map geographically. This data starts with the clerical entry of this data at the schools. It then goes to the SMS database, and then the base map then draws this information for each student and places it on the map geographically, in effect giving each student an X and a Y coordinate on the map. Once on the map, the routing software can use the student data to assist in determining ridership, how many students will be at each stop. And eventually, as we work through the implementation, we will take that information and put it back into the student database. Student data for all special transportation will continue to be entered into the system through the STOPS database, which is where that information resides now. The routing program will actually take that student data into the program, and we will then assign bus stops to those students. After that work is done and the computer in the routing program, that information will then be migrated back to the stops database, and it will give them their stop location, the stop time, and we can then give that information to parents. On this slide, it shows you the whole system that is around the routing software. The Transportation Office is nearing the completion of reconstructing all of the components of our current routing package in the new routing system so that the system can be tested and retested for accuracy. This is an example of one of our high schools' morning routes in the new system. And I need to visit this 3 times during this presentation. I stress shortcuts in the implementation process are painful and costly. The Palm Beach example occurred in 2015, about the time that we bought the program. A week later, if you look at the next headline, school bus problems still plague the county. And just like in Boston, a year later, in August 5, 2016, they abandoned the new technology. Problems caused by rushing implementations do not go away, as these 2 examples have demonstrated. Now let's look at the timeline for implementation. Again, we started in August 2015. First step, which was August through October 2015, was purchase, installation, and review of hardware and software. Then August to November, we prepared current routing data for migration to the new program. This is the maps, the schools, the contractors, the bell times, the bus stops, and special education data. November 2015 to January 2016, we converted the data, we migrated to the new program, and we reviewed that data. By the way, every step along the way, we need to go back and review. It's like the foundation of a large building. You want to make sure that foundation is correct before you build on it. October 15th through March 2016, upload county GIS map, upload and integrate maps from other counties. Let me explain this. The maps from the other counties are for the non-public schools. And the state of Maryland right now, with the State Highway Administration, is in the process of creating one state map. Unfortunately, until that occurs, the roads at each county don't meet. Let me give you a good example. If you go on Route 100 from Anne Arundel to Howard County, there's a bridge on the border, and neither county wants to map that bridge. So the state is, if you're on Route 100 going towards Howard this year, the border is actually on a bridge, and that's one of those examples of the fact that the counties need to coordinate this information. That's going on as we speak. But when we were implementing this, we needed to make sure that all of those spots matched and that we coordinated with the other county maps. Next, December 2015 through March 2016, geocoding training. The staff in Millersville is extremely competent at routing. They're not experienced at using this form of routing. And one of the other problems with implementations is that the staff in the failed implementations has not been given time to digest, learn, and become accomplished at routing. Remember earlier in my presentation I talked about the number of changes we're making, and we're making them at 14 a day. If the staff is not accomplished at doing this work, we are going to get backlogged on that very, very quickly. So some of the time that since we brought the program in now, the staff has been getting up to speed on this, so that when we do fully implement the program, the staff will be competent at making these changes. Next, January through June 2016, identify and upload hazard layers. Now, the hazard layers were the layers that I said we needed to add to each road segment, which was, can a student cross this road? Can a student walk along this road? Can the buses make certain turns? At this point, I want you to notice that at the top of this implementation, there are 2 different colors. The blue areas are the areas where the Transportation Office has actually worked with, in close conjunction with, information technology and the student data folks and the county GIS. So that's the places in blue have all been a team effort between various departments and agencies. Next, March 2016 to April 2017, which is present. Audit and edit bus stops and combine the bus stops into trips. And we're right at the end of that process, and we're fairly confident of where that process lies. We're very confident that we're not going to see surprises. Moving on from here, what's in the future? May 2017 to September 2018. We have May to August, create reports in collaboration with contractors and drivers. There are some canned reports that come along with this program, but like most canned programs, we need to write our own reports. And we're in the process of identifying exactly what drivers and contractors would like to see in their reports. Since they're the end users, we need to be very sensitive about what they'd like in their reports and how they want those route sheets formatted. Next, May 2017 to August 2017. For the second time now, we will parallel the summer school and ESY routes on the old and the new system. We did that to some degree last year. We weren't in a position to do it fully like we're going to do this year. So the summer school routes will be paralleled on the old and the new system. August 2017 through ... distribute traditional routing information at the beginning of the year and phase in the reports of the new system after the beginning of the school year. It was determined that it's best done that way because for everyone involved, bus drivers, contractors, transportation office, school officials, parents, and students, beginning of the year is a stressful time, and it's not the time to spring something new on folks. It's back there. This routing program will be in operation at that time, barring any unforeseens between now and then. But we want to do the reports on the old system so that we get through the beginning of the year with a good comfort level. Then after we finish the beginning of the year, we'll start to phase in the new reports. And the last thing on the timeline I'd like to discuss is 2017-18 school year, parallel new routing systems with the old. We'll begin doing the what-ifs for efficiency during that period of time, after the beginning of the next school year. And I think that, yes, let me move on. I need to hit this one last time, and I will give you 3 examples of this. There are many, many examples, and I won't mention names on 2 of these. One actually happened to a large county in the state of Maryland in 2002. And I know the folks that went through that, and I know the anatomy of that failure. And that's why we're trying to take as much time as we're taking. The other one is happening as we speak in a second major northeastern city. And I won't mention which one because it hasn't hit the newspapers yet. But the Roanoke story, the Palm Beach story, the Boston story is happening as we speak in a second northeastern city. So I want everyone to understand why we have been taking our time with this process. We want to deliver a successful implementation to Anne Arundel County. We don't want to have these headlines with Anne Arundel County. And then one last confirmation. The National School Transportation Specifications and Procedures, which is adopted by the 16th National Congress on School Transportation, meets every 5 years. Anne Arundel County, as far back as I can remember, has always had a representative at this Congress, whether it's staff from the county office or whether it's one of our contractors. It actually states, and this has been in the specifications for at least 15 years, It's important to make sure that before implementation, transportation staff analyzes any computer-generated routes because they will almost certainly need some level of adjustment. Now, it's a very casual statement. It's a very simple statement. What's behind that is take your time. Review everything. And that's the process we've been in for the last 20 months. Thank you. We'd love to answer questions.
Thank you. That was a very thorough presentation, and I can tell that we're in good hands with you and your staff.
Thank you.
And I know it's easy to armchair quarterback everything. When you're not involved in it, you don't understand the details, and I appreciate you sharing all that with us today. I know we have some questions. Mrs. Burge?
My question is somewhat related. I appreciate this. This is phenomenal, and I know that this is going to help a lot of people understand why we didn't just plug and play.
Right.
Which, I've tried to explain to people, and usually they just get angry at me when I tell them why we can't just plug and play. But one of the complaints that I hear a lot is that we're not efficient because they see empty school buses going on routes. Well, it seems like one of those issues could be not related to the school bus routing at all, but could have to do with the fact that some people choose to drive their children to school rather than putting them on the bus, which is not necessarily something that the school system can control. And I'm wondering if there's any sort of a policy answer to, can you give away the seats if someone chooses repeatedly not to put their children on the bus, or do you always have to keep that seat available in case that child eventually wants to get on the bus? Because I know that a lot of times those empty seats are due to children being driven who could be on the bus.
Right. Very good question. We don't leave a seat for every student. We route buses based on historical ridership. Now, when all of the numbers shake out, which takes some time, we'll be able to have better insight in assigning buses to stops once we use the new program. But I want to go back to the part of my presentation that said that we are considered one of the most efficient systems, and this is why I added it, we need that reserve capacity because of the number of changes we make. But yes, the new system will allow us efficiencies. A word of caution. Software representatives will love to tout the fact that their software was used to show dramatic changes of efficiency. And that's true to a point, but it's only half true. Software programs will sharpen the focus of your efficiency. They won't give you a different picture. When software programs have been used to implement dramatic efficiencies, it's because transportation offices recognized that they had a problem with efficiency. In other words, that problem was already recognized. That the software doesn't give you a dramatically different picture than what you already know. And we know that we run a fairly efficient transportation system. And I don't want people to misunderstand that and say, well, you can still improve. Absolutely. And that's why we're looking forward to having this, is to gain even more efficiency. But the fact is, the programs don't show you a different picture than you already see.
Right, and I have tried to tell some folks that some of the efficiencies that they see might be things that they don't care for,
right.
Which, a route that currently has 6 stops may end up only having 3 stops because it's a lot more efficient for the bus to only stop 3 times and pick kids up 3 times than 6 times. So your child may end up having to walk twice as far to the bus stop as he or she used to. And yes, that will save us time and money. And that may not be what people are thinking of when they think of efficiencies, but that's an efficiency. And that's the kind of thing that the software program may tell us to do, that we're doing too many bus stops. And people need to be ready for the efficiencies that the computer program tells us about.
I swore I would not bring that up but I'm glad you did. And if you can see, Mr. Sheknovich is shaking his head. So thank you.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you again, Madam President. And, I really want to thank you, and I echo Mrs. Korbelak's comments that I really appreciate the thoroughness that's in this presentation, and certainly how this has evolved. And I had two questions that I was going to ask, and I think the early part of what Mrs. Burge said nailed that about the unknowns of the students who drive or whose parents may drive them to school in another way. The second is, and I know it was mentioned in some of the, even that last slide that talked about the manual manipulation, or I'm paraphrasing, new traffic issues or new traffic patterns that may emerge. For instance, a new development, 150, 200 townhomes, pops up somewhere. Certainly that changes, the traffic dynamics in a particular area. How certainly, a routing system's not going to capture that. And, quite honestly, we know horror stories of certain roads throughout the county, and we know stay away from this one between 7 and 8, or 8 and 8:30, whatever it may be. But how is that feedback brought back to your department? Is it just captured by drivers just complaining about, stay away from route whatever, or whatever the case may be?
You've given me the perfect opportunity to brag on certain people in the transportation office. The specialists and the OTs, the operational technicians, are on the road constantly. And one of the parts of the learning process, the learning curve in using these types of programs, is that there's an assumption that the times are going to be generated by the speed limit on the road, or like Google Maps, who actually show you where the disruptions are. You look at Google Maps and it'll say right now as we speak there's an accident here or a road delay here. I want to remind everyone that they spend millions of dollars in the technology that allows them to do that. That's well beyond the capacity of any school system. The art of determining the times is just that. It's more art than science. And in going through the learning curve of using these new systems, transportation staffs have to learn the most effective way of assigning times. Just like you said about certain roads, the classic example is the 1/4 of a mile around each one of our high schools. If you drive in at, and I'm going to pick times, but if you drive in at 7:03, it takes you 2 minutes to get that last 1/4 of a mile. If you get there 5 minutes later at 7:08, it takes you 20 minutes. Okay? So yes, those are, we assign those times based on our observations, and each specialist knows their area. They know where those are, and as new communities come online, believe me, we're out there looking. And all I can say right now is that's one of the steps that we have not gotten to yet. I'm aware of what happens when we get to that step, but yes, we'll be looking very carefully at the times and taking into account those sorts of things that happen on the road.
We also have a great relationship, Mr. Gillen, with the county and with the State Highway Administration. So when the county's contemplating new developments, we understand, we are told, telegraphed what the build-out cycle is for that. That's shared with facilities for demography planning. It's shared with transportation. Similarly, if a large construction project or if SHA is going to be taking a bridge down for a large maintenance activity, we're notified of that as well. But that requires almost a continuous recalibration because 12 months a year, there's construction activities, et cetera. So we not just review the routes, but we have to make modifications possibly to school start and stop times on occasions, maybe for a year duration while a particular construction activity is happening along a segment of Central Avenue, et cetera. We'll take that into account. We'll make that adjustment. The next year when the construction activity is over, we can maybe bring that school back. So between facilities and transportation, we are in constant dialogue with Department of Public Works here in the county and SHA. And a new dynamic is the Fort, because the Fort Meade area obviously is undertaking a lot of their own construction activities. And we just had a meeting with them just this past week to better understand what their construction plan is going to be inside of the compound on a going forward basis. So again, we can continue to make the necessary tweaks to not just the routing system, but to the times of those schools during that impacted period.
And I appreciate that. One quick follow-up just on those lines. So you mentioned Fort Meade, if there's a new security issue, for instance, I know we had that last year.
Correct.
But, even a new community, starts, having increased traffic, patterns or whatever the case may be. Once we publish those times, let's say in August, we know what our bus times are and, students know be at the bus stop at X time. When there's a need to shift mid-year, are we able to do that? Or do we have to wait until the following year or two?
Historically, we've not. Historically, we put out essentially a tentative start and dismissal time. That's already gone out this year. And then just traditionally around the middle of June, we'll give schools the last run of it. So we'll make any other adjustments because we want them to be able to telegraph that to their faculty members, to the school community in those end-of-year flyers. If something happens to us mid-course, if it was drastic, if we really did lose a bridge segment like they did in Atlanta, we would obviously have to make some real-time decisions at that point in time. But again, a lot of these projects have a longer planning horizon, so we actually have a pretty good understanding of when they're going to start up and end, assuming that budgets hold up, that there's no unforeseen conditions.
And specifically, though, not so much the school start time, but the bus pickup time. Is there latitude?
They're correlated. I mean, they are correlated, but we do make adjustments
Yes.
to the pickup times. They're much easier to move than the school start time.
And that's what I was
yes.
asking. So we can do that mid-year if
Yep, and we
there's
do.
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
Mr. Douglas talked about the thousands of adjustments that we make, and some of those are not of the school start time, but the actual pickup time may need to get moved back 3 or 4 minutes or accelerated 3 or 4 minutes.
Ms. Sasso.
Yes, I just have a question. Has the clerical entry for all of these stops already been entered into the software? Is the software already?
The stops are in the software.
Where?
Yes.
Okay.